And the immortal words of Dr. Martin Luther King ring in our ears that we must judge others not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
The left wants us to constantly focus on skin color. It's destructive. Martin Luther King Jr. is rolling over in his grave.
Yeah, you know what? I bet he is, actually. In fact, I'm pretty sure every time someone uses his words that way, Dr. King's illustrious remains spin fast enough to power the eastern fucking seaboard. Here is the thing, though. That dream speech was clearly an aspirational goal, not a description of things as they stood. And in fact, King himself later...
Yeah, but have we reached that aspiration? That's the question.
No, but he frames this so dishonestly. He says that was an aspirational goal, not saying what we have achieved or what we are.
Yeah.
All the clips of people are talking about it as an aspirational fucking goal.
Yes.
They're all saying, why are we moving towards this CRT bullshit, which is all about judging people.
Aspiration.
Yes. It's saying, why are we moving towards the CRT fucking bullshit, which is all about judging people on the content of their skin color and not their character, or on the basis of their skin color, not the content of their character. When this is, and they're criticizing this, saying, listen, the left for the last 60 years has been using this liberal framework for civil rights and racial equality. And now you're telling me the exact fucking opposite. You're telling me we have to throw that in the trash. We have to pick up this CRT garbage.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what all the evil Republicans that he quoted are saying.
Yeah, but to him, he perceives it as Martin Luther King spinning in his grave because a bunch of white racists are saying the words that he said.
Yeah. Well, him and Jon Stewart are operating off of this old framework. They still think that they're in the early 2000s and the 1990s, where they think that Republicans are making this argument to say, we don't want to spend money on social programs for Black people.
Right.
And he thinks that's why they're invoking these words. When that's has nothing to do with the conversation. The conversation is about, should CRT be taught in school or advocated for in the broader mainstream culture?
Yeah. Christopher Rufo is definitely advocating for school choice, which I would categorize as a social program.
Right.
To put a pretty major asterisk on it.
I must confess.
Oh, wait, let me go back. This is very dishonest, what you're about to say.
Was clearly an aspirational goal, not a description of things as they stood. And in fact, King himself later put a pretty major asterisk on it.
I must confess that that dream that I had that day has at many points turned into a nightmare. And I've come to see that we have many more difficult days ahead, and some of the old optimism was a little superficial, and now it must be tempered with a solid realism.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And in a book published that same year, he wrote that
I saw a
the
lot of cuts
majority
in there.
of white Americans consider themselves sincerely committed to justice for the Negro, and they believe that American society is essentially hospitable to fair play and to steady growth toward a middle-class utopia embodying racial harmony. Unfortunately, this is a fantasy of self-deception and comfortable vanity. So while it is clearly...
Okay. Let me write down we're at 21:15 because we're about to switch videos here. Okay. This is a very, very dishonest framing. So he played a clip of Martin Luther King Jr. saying, sometimes it feels like, my dream has become a nightmare. Okay.
We're going to play that actual clip?
Oh, we're going to play that actual clip.
Nice.
What do you think the question was that he was responding to?
Oh, I'm not sure, but I know that it has to be completely different than the way that John Oliver is framing it.
Well, I'll give you a hint, okay? When people dishonestly talk about Martin Luther King Jr. And the way he was perceived publicly, what is the one thing they always focus on?
That he was a socialist?
Well, sort of, but what is the one issue that they always conflate as being like, this is why people didn't like... Well, okay, whatever. It's too hard to ask this question. I'll just play it.
And in a very real sense, these three are tied inextricably together, and we aren't going to get rid of one without getting rid of the other.
Okay, here's the question that John Oliver cut out that Martin Luther King Jr. was responding to.
Oh,
okay.
This is great.
When he says the dream is a nightmare line. Because the implication to us is he's talking something about race relations in the country, right?
Yeah, obviously.
What else would he be talking
about?
Well,
the dream that he spoke in the speech was about the aspirations of colorblind society, right? Content of the character, color of the skin. Right. Yeah.
Right. Okay, let's see what the question was.
When you stood on the Lincoln Memorial that day in August, '63, and you said, I had a dream, did that dream envision that you could see a war in Asia?
Oh my God, no!
Preventing the federal government doing for the Negroes, preventing the society doing for the Negroes that which you think had to be done?
So,
no.
Oh my God.
No. So he asked him about the Vietnam War.
Yes. The question is in response to the fucking Vietnam War. And you'll see when you listen to his answer, they cut it off right before he begins to mention the Vietnam War.
Right. What? How fucking dishonest. What a bunch of hacks. I wonder if Martin Luther King is spinning in his grave the way you're using him like a fucking puppet, like a little hand puppet to make your argument.
And he's not the only one. I've seen so many people use that clip. I think Cody Johnston used that clip. I've seen so many people use this fucking clip.
Oh my God.
And they all removed the context of the clip that this was about the Vietnam War.
And specifically about spending. He's basically saying, hey, you wanted these social programs. You talk about UBI. Now we don't have any money because we're spending it all in Vietnam. How do you feel about that?
Right.
He's like, nightmare.
And he actually, I think this is where he says it. I don't know if it's in the book or if it's there. He actually gives a pretty interesting, I think a good answer about how once countries go to war, it sort of galvanizes the focus in that direction away from
social issues. Yeah.
Social issues that are happening domestically.
This is one of the reasons why, and I think they're a bit justified in the people on the right wanting to minimize the Ukraine thing because they're worried about, they're like, we have our own problems here we have to deal with. They're worried about being galvanized in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Which I completely
I think that's
relate
a justifiable concern. Yeah.
I would like them to make that argument. Yeah.
Right.
No, I didn't envision that then. I must confess that that period was a great period of hope for me. And I'm sure for many others all across the nation, many of the Negroes who had about lost hope, saw a solid decade of progress in the South. And in 1954, which was, 64, 1963, 9 years after the Supreme Court's decision to be in the March on Washington, meant a great deal. It was a high moment, a great watershed moment. But I must confess that that dream that I had that day has at many points turned into a nightmare. Now, I'm not one to lose hope. I keep on hoping. I still have faith in the future. But I've had to analyze many things.
Did they cut that part out in the John Oliver one?
Yeah, they cut a lot of this out.
They cut him out saying that he had faith and hope in the future?
No, of course they cut it out.
Okay.
Yeah. Obviously. Come on.
Okay. Because I'm like, I don't remember him saying that, the John Oliver version.
They can't have Martin Luther King showing any kind of hope. Their whole narrative is that, nah, you got Martin Luther King wrong. He was black-pilled to the core. He had no optimism whatsoever.
Right.
Over the last few years, and I would say over the last few months, I've gone through a lot of soul-searching and agonizing moments. And I've come to see that we have many more difficult days ahead, and some of the old optimism was a little superficial, and
That's in
now
there.
it must be tempered with a solid realism.
That's
and
in
I
there.
think the realistic fact is that we still have a long, long way to go, and that we are involved in a war on Asian
They
soil.
cut that out. Yeah,
That's right where they ended it.
They totally
They ended
cut
it right
out.
where he says they ended it right where he says we have a long way to
Long
go.
way to go, and that we.
Isn't that right where they
Yeah.
ended it?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, let me.
No, finish. I want to see the rest.
Oh yeah, I know. I just played it in the other window. Yeah, they ended it right there,
Yeah.
and then he continues.
We
saying,
are involved in a war on Asian soil, which, if not checked and stopped, can poison the very soul of our nation.
Can poison the soul of our nation.
Right.
Vietnam can. Not not white privilege, okay? He's not talking about white privilege here, guys. He's not saying whitey's going to come poison the soul of the nation.
Right.
He's not saying the legacy of slavery or redlining. No, he's not talking about any of that shit.
Yep.
Dr. King, even if there had not been a war in Asia,
Okay, and then it's more about the war.
Yeah. Yeah. See, but that's why it's so dishonest. They
Yeah.
cut out the entire context of the question
Yeah.
and make it seem like he's talking about something completely different.
So dishonest. Dishonesty always, I think, is going to be John Oliver's new name.
And we'll listen, and it gets even worse
Oh, really?
because this is what he says earlier. Okay.
which all of us wanted.
Because this is an interesting question. that
It
is
can't get
asked.
worse, Sitch. I don't believe you.
Oh no, it gets worse.
This is terrible.
And degrading.
Apart from wanting to live better, which all of us want to do, to raise one's children in a better way, to be better, does the Negro in America know what he wants to be?
I'm convinced that almost every Negro in this country, other than those who have been so scarred by the system that they've become pathological in the process, and we all have to battle with pathology. Nobody really knows what it means to be a Negro unless one can really experience it. And I know we all have to battle with this constant drain of a feeling of nobodiness. But in spite of this, I think the vast majority of Negroes in this country know that they want to be people, they want to be men, they want equality, period. It just boils down to that. And we haven't been able to be people. We haven't been men because of all of the conditions that we've lived with and the syndrome of deprivation surrounding conditions, whether it's in housing, in the economic area, or in schools, or in the vicious credit practices that we face in the ghetto, and all of the problems of closed doors and constant defeats. But in spite of all this, I think we all know, basically, that we want to be men. We want to be persons judged not on the basis of the color of our skin, but on the basis of the content of our
He
character.
literally says the same fucking thing in the speech. John, you're so dishonest, John Oliver. You're so dishonest.
Oh my God.
This is systemic dishonesty. John Oliver doesn't know that he's completely lying to the public. He can't know this.
Well, whoever's putting together the package
Is
writing
a
the script
lying
is-
piece of shit.
Yes.
The
He
fucking
says-
editor on this is a lying piece of shit.
John Oliver has the gall to have a bunch of right-wingers, evil right-wingers, saying, the content of your character, not the color of your skin. And he says, oh, MLK is spinning over in his grave. And here's him, talking about, why he'd be spinning over in his grave. And they play an out of context answer about the Vietnam War, and they neglect the beginning just a few minutes earlier where he literally repeats the same affirmation.
Yeah. Yes.
And this is and this is why John Oliver and Jon Stewart and all these fucking assholes are so lost in this conversation.
Yeah.
MLK was in favor of liberal reforms. He believed in individual rights.
Yes.
And what he's advocating for was that, listen, I alike and agree with the individual rights and the liberal principles put forward in the founding of our country.
Yep.
Okay. That, all men should be treated equal.
Yeah.
And there should be equality under the law, and should be able to pursue, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and all that good stuff. And all I want is for those things to apply to Black people too.
Yep.
Okay. I want to expound and expand the rights of, put forward in the Constitution to all people. That's what is being advocated for here. Treat me as a man, okay, not as the color of my skin.
Right.
And the current conversation with CRT is the fucking opposite.
Totally.
And this is what Jon Stewart and John Oliver have their heads up their ass. They don't understand. These CRT people are not advocating for expanding these rights to encompass all people. They're saying individual rights, the concept of individual rights, is a lie and is garbage, and it doesn't work. We tried to do that in the 70s. It didn't, or the 60s. It didn't bring about the changes we want. So now we need to throw that away, and we need to throw away the system that our entire legal system is based upon. And we need to come up with some new thing, which, by the way, will probably be some weird form of Marxism.